Upgrade your mesh. Yes, we are back in a Weld document. If you haven't opened it yet, please open it now. And while it's open, do a file and then go to Save As or hit Shift Ctrl S. And while we are here in our Documents folder and our Blender Udemy folder, okay, let's look at this. Favorite and add bookmark button. Now you can add a bookmark here, so you have easier access to your Blender Udemy folder. Let's go into a Models folder. And then here we can save as, but it has the same name. So let's give it a different name. Let's call it Well version 2. Okay, hit save as. Then we'll go to the default layout. And with the middle mouse button, we click and drag around to look around. And you may have noticed that we can see the texture, although we are in solid shading. And that is because here in the viewport shading options, we have texture turned on and we should put it on material. And now we see the solid view instead of the texture. And also turn on the viewport overlay so you can see what is selected. Make sure you have the well selected and then hit slash on the numpad. This will give us local view, and with local view we can only see the object we are working on and we block out all the objects that are around it. Now let's hit tab to go to edit mode. And the first thing we'll do is we'll make a hole where the hole of the well should be. So there's a top face here. So let's deselect all with Alt A first. And then with face mode selected, that's the button over here. Or you can hit the tree, and not the tree in the numpad, but on the normal tree. Then select the top face here. And then we'll do an inset. But before doing inset, let me explain something. It is good practice to have your mouse away from the selection when you want to do an inset or a scale, for example. And let me show you why. If I do an S now for scale with the mouse close to the selection, I have a very short range to scale my object. As you can see, it's pretty hard. It is way too sensitive. When you put your mouse away from your selection and then do S for scale, your range is much higher, so your scaling is more accurate. And if you press shift during scaling, you're even more accurate. So with your mouse away from the selection, hit I for inset. And then drag in until you have an inset of about this big. So that the distance from here is about the same as the distance here. Okay, and now after you made this inset, we'll make an extrusion. And what is an extrusion? I'll just select this face again, or keep it selected, and then hit E on your keyboard. And when you drag in or out, you can see this is an extrusion. So you double up the vertices you have selected, and then you can move them either in or out. So let's move this in, because we want to make a hole. And let's move this 2 blender units in, so hit -2 on the numpad, because we know this well is 2 blender units high. And let's go to wireframe by hitting Z and choosing wireframe. I choose wireframe from the menu on top here. It's nicely snug on the bottom of the well. And this face is something we don't need anymore, so we can just hit X and delete face. And you see we have a nice hole here now. Let's go back to solid mode, Z and solid mode. The next thing is we'll make a upgrade on the roof. So what we'll do, we'll select the bottom of the roof here with face select mode. And then we do I again with the mouse away from the selection and do an inset until we are about here. So that's about halfway the poles. Like here, as you can see. Then we go to side view by hitting 3 on the numpad. And do Z again and choose wireframe. And we still have this selected, as you can see. So we'll hit E for extrude and extrude it up until we are about here. So this distance is about the same as the distance here. And then we will get rid of this top face, because it's not really something we need anymore. And let's see, it looks like this now. So hit S for scale and then Y to constrain around the Y-axis. And then drag in, or better, hit numpad 0. And while we now don't see this face, it's actually still there, but it has a dimension of 0 on the Y-axis. And there is something we need to do, because on this spot and on this spot, they are now on the same place more than one vertex. So there are 2 vertices here and 2 vertices on the other side. What you can do is you can go to Mesh, choose clean up and then choose merge by distance. And as you can see, we have now 2 vertices deleted. That's correct because we had 2 here and 2 there. Now we needed 2 less, so let's do less vertices. Another thing I have to mention is that when you look here, you see I have this one and this one this one. I have 2 triangles there, and normally you don't want triangles, you want square shaped faces. It has to do with animation, for example, with deforming. It works better on squares mostly. Game engines work with triangles already. Just remember, when modeling, it's better to have faces with 4 vertices than more or less. And there are exceptions, and this is one of them, because we know we will not animate this model. So next I want to scale the roof and select one of the faces, hit Ctrl L to select all, then hit S for scale, hit X to constrain on the X-axis and scale out until you are about here, so that this edge is on the side of the pole. Let's go to Edge Select mode, wireframe, let's go to the top of these 2 poles, and with Alt-A deselect everything, and then with Alt and clicking on one of the edges on top, you will select an edge loop. What is an edge loop? There we go. I'll make a new document and explain. So we are in a clean document. We have the basic cube, we hit Tab to go to edit mode. Now when I hit Ctrl R and hover over an edge of the cube, you can see it wants to make an edge loop. You can make one by just clicking and then moving it, or just hitting escape, and it will make an edge loop on that position. When I go to wireframe mode and deselect with Alt-A and hit Alt and click on one of these edges, you can see they are all connected, so that's an edge loop. Let's make another example. Alt-A, Alt-A. And you can also subdivide the cube. Let's first select everything with A, and then subdivide here. Then here open the subdivide options. I make a lot more subdivisions. And now all these little edges you can click on with Alt-A, and you'll see that they're all connected. So those are also all edge loops. It's a very important concept in 3D modeling, so I'm pretty sure you'll see this coming back a lot more in the future. Let's get back to our well document. So now you know what an edge loop is. So with this one selected and Shift and Alt click on another one, this one, we'll select the top loop of the other support beam. We have them both selected. And now go to side view by hitting 3 on the numpad, then hit G to grab or to move the transfer in the Z direction. So hit Z, move it up until you are about here, hit enter or a left mouse button and go to solid view, and now you can see it's nicely snug in the corner there. Great, nice. Okay, that's it for correcting this mesh or upgrading this mesh. What we'll do next is we will delete all the UV seams. Remember the seams we made for UV unwrapping? That is because our topology changed, so our UV map will also change because we have more edges or vertices. So let's first hit A to select all, then Ctrl E, then go down and clear seams. Then let's first go to UV editing, the UV editing layout. We are in UV editing now, so let's first get rid of this texture. We do that by clicking on the cross or the X here. Click, and as you can see it's gone now. If needed, hit T and N to hide the tool shelves. And let's start making some nice seams. Okay, first hit Alt-A to deselect everything and let me have a look. Let's do the base first. Make sure you are in Edge Select mode by clicking on the menu or hit 2 on top of your keyboard. Hit slash on your numpad to focus on the well again. Then let's go to front view by hitting 1 on the numpad. Then drag around a bit because now you know where the front of the well is. Click on the edge on the back, that's this one here. Ctrl E and mark C. And then select the top loop here by clicking on Alt and clicking on one of the edges. So that's an edge loop. And next up is the inner loop. So with Alt click on one of the edges on the inner loop here, this edge. Then again, Ctrl E, mark seam. Then we also need to select an edge on the inside. So we'll select this one. That's the one on the opposite side of the one we did on the outside. So Ctrl E and mark seam. Then hit L to select everything that is connected. U for unwrap and unwrap. And there you go. That's the outside, that's the inside, and that's the top. Let's have a look around. Next up is the support beams. We'll do them in the same way as we did before. So we'll choose an edge on the inside. Best on the back as well. So select an edge. Ctrl E, mark seam. Ctrl L to select everything. U for UV unwrap. And unwrap the other one. Click a seam. Mark seam. Ctrl L, U. And UV unwrap. Next up is the roof. So let's try something. Let's first with Alt selected, click on the bottom loop to select that edge loop, and then with Shift Alt click on the inner loop and select that. Let's have a look. This is the back, so with Shift click on this seam. Let's mark seams. Let's see what more can we do. Let's do the top here. So select all these four. Ctrl E, mark seam. Then the inner side. Let's select all these. Ctrl E, mark seam. Then Ctrl L to select everything, UV unwrap, and let's see. So the first thing I see is that these parts are on a crooked angle or rotated. Problem with this is that when you project them on the model, the texture will get rotated and will get distorted. You can't always, but that's something you want to prevent. So let's change the UV map and see if we can fix this. So what we can do is we can unwrap this model in a different direction. So not this way, but let's have a look. More, and so not this way, but more in that way. I hope that's clear. Okay, so let's select this one, this one, this one, and this one. Ctrl E, mark seam. This one we'll select, and this one as well, and this one as well. Let's see, what is the back? Oh, this is the back, so not this one, but that one. Ctrl E and clear seam. Okay, let's have a look. What do we have now? It's going in this direction. Okay, here it ends. Okay, let's try it. Ctrl L and unwrap. Let's look around. So this part is this part. Okay, the triangles are now on a much better angle. They are separated as well. Normally they would be connected here. I could do that, but it'll just take up more UV space. So I think it's okay. The inner part is separated. It looks good, simple, clean. I am happy. Okay. Let's have a look at the front view. Okay, I don't see that many seams in view. It's okay, some, but it's okay like this. Now let's hit Alt A to select all here. Then here also select Alt A. Then we go to UV. And then we go to Average Island Scale. That brings all the UVs in the same scale. And next up is UV and then Peg Islands. It might look a little bit different in your case, but that's okay because we will move them anyway. And we want to do that because we want to make the UVs as large as possible. So let's start. Let's see. Let's click on this one. Make sure Island Select is turned on. Let's rotate this one 90 degrees. Let's put it away for now. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make a smaller square here so I can scale it up and make all UVs bigger. So use R and G to rotate and to move your UVs. And try to make a smaller square. And with the triangles, or every shape, if it comes to that, make sure you don't get any crooked angles. So try to rotate it around 90 degrees. Make sure that the rotation of all the UVs is in a nice straight angle, so else you'll get distorted pixels on your model. And this is the inside of the roof, and that's something you don't see at all unless you're a frog, but let's say we're not. So let's make this a little bit smaller because we don't need that much detail. And the last one, let's put it here, rotate this one and snug it in there. This one can be even a little bit smaller. And shift select and drag both of them down. A little bit more room here for these. Now we have a nice square, so we can scale it up, and if we're smart we scale it up from the cursor, from this point. So let's hit period on the numpad and then select 2D cursor, and then we'll select all and S and scale from that point. So you scale from the cursor. Let's try to fit it in the canvas, move it up a bit. Move these inward a little bit. Well, that's okay. Let's hit period again and let's choose individual origins, or else we'll get confused later on. Okay, here's our new UV map. Okay, and let's not forget to save, so hit Ctrl S to save. Very good, you made an upgrade of the model. You made a very nice UV map again, nicely fitting in the canvas here. And with this we can start painting again. So that's for the next lecture. See you there. Yahoo! Bye bye!